Hi everyone, welcome to Sports Insider. I'm Dan Labbe, joined again by Bud Shaw. Chris Fedor, of course, is in Atlanta. We're going to talk all things Cleveland sports today. We're going to talk Indians with Paul Hoynes. Of course, we'll talk Cavaliers with Chris Fedor at the end of the show. Mary Kay Cabot will join us in the middle of the show to talk Browns because even though it's May, Bud, it's always time to talk Browns.
You have to talk Browns, even if there's not much to say.
So, of course, we have a packed show, as always, today. And as promised, we're going to start things off. Calling in from Chicago, our Indians beat reporter, Paul Hoynes. Hey, Hoynesy, how are you today?
Good, Dan. Bud, how you guys doing?
Good. Paul, are they actually starting to turn this around? 2 wins in a row, chance to take 3 or 4 in a series?
Yeah, it's strange. A couple things have gone right for them. They finally kind of found a way to, if not beat left-handed starters, at least neutralize them. It started on this trip when they beat Wandy Rodriguez in the first game in Texas. They kind of wrestled Chris Sale to a no decision. They beat Quintana on Tuesday night, a guy that was 4-0 lifetime against them, and they kind of wrestled Carlos Rodon to a 6-inning no decision before beating another a left-handed reliever, Dan Hennings, last night. So they're finding a way to handle lefties. I think their lineup is a lot more balanced right now, and there's some good things happening. But I mean, they're still buried so deep in the basement of the AL Central. I don't know if they're it's going to take a semi-miracle for them to get their nose above water.
Hoynesy, I always kind of love to play the schedule game, and the Indians open June in Kansas City. But before that, they've got Cincinnati at home this weekend. They've got Texas. They go to Seattle for 4, and as of right now, it looks like they're going to miss Felix Hernandez in that trip. Do they have a real chance to gain some momentum heading into that series in Kansas City?
I think they do, Dan. The thing, I just like, Kipnis has given them such a boost in that leadoff spot. You've got, Jose Ramirez kind of playing out of his mind. I think someone finally tapped this guy on the shoulder and said, you have options. You could get sent down. So, get your head out of your, out of the clouds and start playing. And, you've seen, I think, Swisher, hasn't really done much offensively, but at least he's a presence. He gives Francona another switch hitter. They're not so left-handed dominated. Brantley is hitting close to 400 with runners in scoring position. So, I do think they've got a chance to get on a roll. You like the way Bauer and Kluber have pitched. Carrasco has given them innings. The bullpen is still a concern to me.
Paul, I can't tell you how happy I am that you said get your head out of the clouds instead of something else. Let's talk about the number 5 starters for a minute. I mean, when's the last time an organization had a guy start a game and retire a week later? I mean, it has to go back to like Jack Morris, doesn't it? I mean, what was going on there, and what does it say about these guys that they had to trot Bruce Chen out there?
Yeah, I don't know if they were, they liked Bruce Chen so much that they brought him up instead of Markham. I don't know, or they were saving Markham for the White Sox because, he was like 4-0 against them like 10 years ago. I'm not sure, it just seemed like such a strange move, or maybe they wanted Markham to pitch another game. It was strange, but I think Bruce Chen knew he was done. Obviously he retired, but it was kind of, those, it's just, you go through your pitching depth, and they lose Tomlin, they lose Gavin Floyd in spring training. Ben House, who didn't pitch well at all, he hurts his shoulder, and then you've got Bruce Chen and Markham down there, and it sounded like they kind of flipped a coin between the two guys, and they came up with Chen, and they should have been the other way around.
Hoynesy, the Indians finally get Michael Brantley back from his back issues. He starts to play well. Now Carlos Santana is dealing with a back issue. He's been out of the lineup. There's hopes that he'll be back today. What's the latest on Santana?
Yeah, Francona said he should play tonight. Dan, if he does play, I wouldn't be surprised if Santana's hitting ninth and they keep Ramirez in the number 2 spot. I like Ramirez so much better in the number 2 spot than Santana. I know he walks. Santana leads the world in walks, but he doesn't do anything else. I mean, he's in a. I don't even know if he wants to hit number 2 because he certainly hasn't driven the ball since he's been there. I think Ramirez gives him much more an attack-oriented mindset in that number 2 spot than Carlos. I'd move him back down to cleanup, but that's me. But I just think, but Santana will be back. He's scheduled to be back and playing tonight.
Paul, the 40-game milepost is traditionally the first time people feel you've seen enough of a baseball team to draw some conclusions about what kind of season they're going to have. What kind of season are these guys going to have?
Bud, I've seen more than enough of these guys, believe me.
You didn't need all 40?
No. I mean, I think, to me, here's what you got. You've got a questionable offense that has no proven right-handed power hitter in there to balance its lineup out. You've got a bullpen that, I don't know, might be toasted for the last 2 years. Thank goodness they put Zach McAllister in there. He's given Francona, one reliable guy to go to. I don't know about Shaw. I don't know about Zubzinski or even Cody Allen. They just look so inconsistent right now, and I don't know if that's because they held them back in spring training. They didn't get a lot of work just because of the workload the last 2 years, or has the workload caught up with them? Even Scott Atchison, has really looked shaky to me. You've got that. You've got a decent starting rotation. Hopefully Markham can settle the number 5 spot down. You've got Kluber and Bauer that are pitching well right now. Salazar kind of had a shaky start in Texas, but he's had a pretty good run. Carrasco's giving them innings. So, right now the best part of this team is the rotation. That was kind of what we thought coming out of spring training, but, they've got to score a lot more runs to be, to be an effective ball club. They're just not doing it enough.
Hoynesy, before we let you go, we do have to talk about Corey Kluber. His last 2 starts, 17 innings, 1 run, 30 strikeouts, and just 1 walk. Unfortunately, somehow he only won 1 of those starts. But this guy looks like the Corey Kluber that won the Cy Young last year. And honestly, in these last 2 starts, he looks better than that Corey Kluber.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Dan. And, I was talking to Mickey Callaway about it. You talk to Kluber about it, and he doesn't say a whole lot. So he just, he's getting ahead of hitters. That's how he struck out 30 guys in 17 innings. So, okay, well, that's a good thing. Mickey Callaway is saying that, last year he kind of relied on that 2-seam fastball. This year he's still throwing that, but he's throwing more 4-seam fastballs. It's given him better control with the fastball, so or better command with it, and that makes his off-speed pitches better. And I think him and Roberto Perez are finally getting on the same page. Although that wild pitch, kind of definitely cost them, on Monday night. But I think when Gomes gets back, I don't think anybody is going to be happier than Kluber because, obviously, I think Perez was in a tough spot. Rookie catcher, handling a Cy Young winner when Gomes and Kluber have been on the same page for a full year.
All right, Paul Hoynes, our Indians beat reporter, joining us here on Sports Insider. Paul, thanks for the time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that was Paul Hoynes and Bud. The Indians, maybe it's a mini turnaround. One of the problems they're going to face, though, is you look at the teams they're chasing. Mm-hmm. In some of these divisions, are the Rays really the best team in the East? Are the Astros really the best team in the West? I don't know. But in the Central, the Royals and Tigers are, and they're probably not going to come back to earth that much. And
no, I mean, we know the Tigers had to put Victor Martinez on DL and all, but that's, there's certainly talented enough to withstand that kind of an injury.
All right, let's go ahead and shift gears and let's talk a little bit of Browns. We bring in our Browns beat reporter, Mary Kay Cabot. The Browns will have OTAs beginning next week. Mary Kay, how are you?
I'm fine, guys. How you doing?
All right, Mary Kay, and the extra point is going to look very different next year. Let's go ahead and start there. How does that impact the Browns?
You know, I don't think it's a huge deal. I mean, last year, I think about 97% of 33-yarders were made. So percentage-wise, it's not a huge difference. There will be, a little bit of change in strategy. You know, sometimes you might opt to go for the two, depending on the situation. But, you know, as long as you have a reliable kicker, they mostly make their 33-yarders.
So, Mary Kay, is the idea to keep moving this back until it's not nearly automatic to encourage teams to go for two?
You know, maybe. I think they'll see how it goes for a couple of years and see. If there's no discernible difference, then they're going to have to change it again. I mean, if the point is to make this matter, then it has to matter. So right now, I just don't see. Last year, again, I think it was 34 out of 35 were made. And the year before that, at least 92% of them were made. So, it's not a cataclysmic change.
Of course, another idea here is to try and get teams to want to go for 2 points a little more often, try and make that a little more exciting. When you look at the Browns, and for all the warts that we can point out about Johnny Manziel's game, could it turn out that maybe he becomes a little bit of a secret weapon for them?
He could. It could be something that they try. Again, I don't know how many times you're going to want to take the chance of trying to convert a two-pointer, and that the chances of that are significantly lower than making a 33-yard field goal. But, yeah, definitely. It brings into play a Johnny Manziel or some of your other dual-threat type of guys.
Mary Kay, looking at the OTAs, did the team have any issues at all with Shelton not appearing for these because of academics?
No, not at all. And, it's also a league rule, so, it's nothing that anybody could do anything about. That you cannot join your team until your class has graduated, or is done with school. So, they knew going in that he was going to miss these. And, I do think that it is a significant amount of time to miss 10 OTAs. I mean, if you're going to say that Tayshaun Gibson is behind right now, then you can't, turn around and say, Danny Shelton's not missing a darn thing. So I do think it is somewhat significant, but he is also really big into studying, hitting his playbook, and I think he'll be able to catch up.
Mary Kay, another rookie that a lot of people have high hopes for, Nate Orchard. What is this team expecting to get out of him his rookie season?
Well, I think that they really love his edge rushing ability, and I think that they feel like Nate Orchard and the other pass rushers will fare a lot better with Danny Shelton up front, and Xavier Cooper up front, to kind of open things up and clog up the middle and open things up for those guys on the outside. So I do think that he's somebody they feel like they can plug in there on third down or maybe other downs and get him going forward right away. Now, we know that Barkevius Mingo has been dropping back into coverage a little bit more, at least last year he did. So this is somebody that can come in and complement a Paul Kruger, a Desmond Bryant, an Armani Bryant, and try to get some sacks.
Mary Kay, Tom Reed wrote earlier this week about Travis Benjamin and the Browns kind of hoping to get him going again in the return game. Their return game was terrible last year. Everybody knows that. Benjamin kind of progressed as a wide receiver last year, but is their goal with him still to make him that kind of ace return guy they've been lacking since Josh Cribbs left?
Yeah, I think so. I think from a punt return standpoint, that's what they're hoping to get out of him. And I think everybody is encouraged by the fact that now he will be another year removed from the torn ACL. It's hard to come back and have your full speed in your first year back, and also your confidence. I mean, you're just really most of the time not quite the same. So I do think from a return standpoint and from a receiving standpoint, he should be able to do some things this year. Now he's been around for a while. He's been studying playbooks for a couple of years now. I think you'll be able to do a little bit more with him than just send him on a go route. But the speed that he brings to the table, and which should even be more so this year, I think will really help them this year.
Okay, I know it's early, but how do you see this team using Duke Johnson? And do you think he's going to be more of a pass-catching third down back, or will he get a chance to win the job outright?
I think he'll get a chance to win the job outright. I mean, the opportunity is there. I think it's going to be a really good competition among those guys. And the other two guys showed some maturity problems at times last year. So I do think that the chance is there for Duke. And, you know, they can also, they're going to want to run the ball a lot. So I do think that, you know, that they will mix it up and they'll rotate. And you might see a different guy starting this week than you do the next week because of their different styles. So I think you'll see him used in all different ways, but the opportunity is there for someone to really come in here and seize the moment.
Mary Kay, it's a story that, I mean, it's probably going to fade away, but this John Sandusky thing is sort of interesting because of the timing of it. What happened there?
Well, you know what? He was Tom Heckert's right-hand man. He was the director of player personnel for 3 years or 4 years under Tom Heckert. And that's a pretty high-level position with a pretty big paycheck. And they demoted him last year to a personnel associate and then, you know, completely phased him out this year and didn't renew his contract. So basically that's what happened. He was from another regime, and then Ray Farmer came in and he you know, wanted his own guys in there. And he hired Morocco Brown to fill that role last year as vice president of player personnel. So he was just basically phased out because he was, you know, not one of Ray's guys. And, you know, I think the thing, though, as I wrote in the little small story, was that generally you want, you know, to be able to look for work right after the draft. Right now, it's kind of how you get jobs.
All right, well, we're used to that here in Cleveland. Guys kind of getting phased out as new regimes take over. Mary Kay Cabot, our Browns beat reporter, joining us. Thanks for the time, Mary Kay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, you know, I was talking with Terry Pluto earlier this week. Mm-hmm. It's sort of strange. All is sort of quiet on the Browns front right now. After the offseason got off to that strange start, there's not a quarterback competition to talk about. Going into OTAs next week, just everything sort of quiet, which is good news for the Browns.
Yeah, I think really if Johnny Manziel had finished the season on a higher note, if he hadn't gone through what he did in the winter, I think there'd be this anticipation again of whether he would be the guy and could he be. And that conversation is really not even existing right now.
Okay, let's go ahead and talk Cavaliers. Finally, the Cavs and Hawks started their Eastern Conference Finals series yesterday. The Cavs won. J.R. Smith went crazy. And joining us from Atlanta is Chris Fedor. And Chris, I have this theory that after that game by J.R. Smith, he might not sleep until the Cavs get on the plane on Friday night. I mean, what a performance from Smith.
I think that whatever he did prior to Game 1, Dan, he should just do over and over and over again. Whatever boxers he was wearing or briefs, whatever meal he ate before the game, he should just keep doing that. I actually just walked past J.R. Smith here at the Four Seasons Hotel, and like he's dressed to go golfing. So if that's what it takes for J.R. Smith to knock down shot after shot after shot, then so be it, because he was amazing last night, and they needed every bit of that with Kyrie Irving hobbled, Iman Shumpert struggling with his shot. He was the only one to contribute anything off the bat. You're playing against a deep and balanced team like Atlanta, you're certainly going to need those kinds of contributions.
Chris, is there any chance that J.R. Smith just walked by talking on his phone telling somebody that he walked past you?
But I highly doubt that one. Chances are he didn't even recognize me.
Well, what do you think?
He's in such a zone right now that I'm nowhere even near his headspace.
I don't doubt it. Hey, what did we see last night? Did we see something that's foreboding for Atlanta for the rest of this series, or did we just see an opening salvo?
I think it was a combination, actually. I think Atlanta can play better, but I really do. I think to some degree they simply missed shots last night. They were 3 of 20, 15% from three-point range on uncontested three-pointers. This is one of the best three-pointing shooting teams in the regular season, a team that averages 9.5 made threes so far in the postseason, which is top 5 in the playoffs. So I think they missed some shots. At the same time, when the pressure really started to build and the Cavs started to distance themselves, thanks to JR's three-point arsenal, Atlanta Atlanta strayed away from what got them to 60 wins. They stopped the ball movement. They tried the isolation basketball. They attacked the Cavs one-on-one. They had 9 assists in the second half. That's it. This is a team that was top 5 in offense in the NBA for a reason. It's because they move the ball. That's what their game is predicated on. They don't have a LeBron. They don't have a Kyrie Irving when Kyrie is close to 100%. So they have to do it as a team. They have to do it with a system, and they're relying on crisp ball movement and body movement. And when things got tight and when the Cavs started going on their run, they abandoned their style completely. You can't do those kinds of things in the Eastern Conference Finals. So if they can get back to making some shots the way that they're capable of and playing the way that they're capable of in tight contested situations, then I think Atlanta can avoid a sweep, and I think Atlanta can make this the kind of series that so many people thought it was going to be at the beginning of this thing, one that goes 6, maybe even 7 games between two teams that are evenly matched. But if they're going to try and play the way that they did in the second half against the Cavs, and certainly you have to give the Cavs defense some credit, but if the Hawks are going to play like that, it's curtains for them. They can't win that way.
Chris, staying on the Hawks and kind of along the lines of what you were talking about, I remember after that Game 1 loss to Chicago, Cavs fans were kind of sitting there saying, well, this happened and that happened, and so, no one should really be worried. For the Hawks, I guess I look at last night, the Cavs needed a huge performance out of J.R. Smith. Kyrie Irving is banged up. And for everything that went wrong for them, they still had a chance at the end of that game. Is that sort of the feeling right now with the Hawks, or is there a little bit of panic?
I think there's a little bit of panic, Dan, to be completely honest with you. Look, if you went into that locker room for the Hawks after that, and if you listened to them at the podium, seemed like a defeated team. At that point, they certainly didn't know the injury status of their leading scorer in the postseason, DeMarre Carroll, a guy who can be considered the heart and soul of that team at times and the best defensive player that Atlanta has. So I'm sure that contributed to the feelings that they had. At the same time, I think they understood that they just lost home court advantage. And one of the advantages that they had going into the series against the Cavs is that they did have home court, and they lost 6 games in the regular season at Phillips Arena. So to lose in Game 1 and to lose DeMarre Carroll for an unknown amount of time, I think that all contributed to the feelings that they had. They looked despondent after the game, and they sounded like a defeated team. All of that can change today. All of that can change tomorrow, but their body language is nothing like what you would expect from a number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference.
Chris, what do you make of Korver's postseason to date, and what do you think they have to do to get him loose again?
But to me, it comes down to he is the number 1 guy on the opposing team's scouting report. David Blatt mentioned it throughout the regular season. In the 4 meetings against the Cavs, he said that he was focused more on Kyle Korver than anybody else. That includes Paul Millsap, Jeff Teague, Al Horford, the 3 other All-Stars on the team. If you watch the series between the Hawks and the Washington Wizards, Bradley Beal was ready to follow Kyle Korver to how close he was to him. So teams are employing a different strategies on him, Bud, with the amount of touches that he can get. Because with a little bit of space for Kyle Korver, that could lead to 1-3, and then 1-3 can lead to 4, then 4 can lead to 7. But of doing the things that J.R. Smith did for the Cavs last night, hitting 8 3-pointers in a game, if he gets the space necessary. But Iman Shumpert was all over him. He was wearing him like a Snuggie last night. Bradley Beal did the same thing. Brooklyn, same thing in round 1. So when you're the targeted guy and you're in a postseason series, it becomes very, very difficult. So it might be a case where Atlanta needs Paul Millsap or Al Horford or Jeff Teague, somebody else, just to lose the Cavs said for Kyle Korver to break. But that's David Blatt. Before the series even started, I said, with him shooting 35% 3-point range in the postseason as opposed to 49, does that change how you're going to approach this series with Korver? Does it change the amount of attention that you're going to give him? And he said, Chris, absolutely not. We know he's a terrific shooter. He's number 1 on the scouting report for the Cavs.
All right, Chris, we're having a few connection issues with your phone, so we're going to let you go. Thanks for taking the time.
You got it, guys.
All right, that was Chris Fedor, part of our Cavaliers reporting team in Atlanta. The Cavaliers and Hawks will play Game 2 tomorrow night, 8:30. Essentially a must-win game for the Atlanta Hawks. We don't know the status of DeMarre Carroll. Apparently, reports are that he'll be day-to-day. I'd be surprised if he played, but...
Yeah, I would be surprised, too. And if he's not going to be out there, then Millsap's going to have to spend more time on LeBron and probably has learned his lesson last night that you don't guard LeBron 45 feet away from the basket with the game on the line. I mean, that was pretty remarkable defensive breakdown that allows him to go down the paint and dunk like he did. And
a point of frustration, too, because the Hawks were getting back in that game, and they were kind of letting the Cavs play that iso ball a little bit. They were forcing turnovers, forcing missed shots.
You know, they always talk about, in the NFL, they always talk about the way to demoralize another team is to just keep running it down their throat. Once they realize they can't stop that, you can do whatever you want. I think rebounding is a big part of that in the NBA. And if that body language was what Fedor has mentioned, I can't help but think that the rebounding last night had something to do with that. Because they're not a big team. They're not. They like to get out on the floor, and they get all this motion going, and they just got pounded. And Tristan Thompson looks like a guy who probably wishes he could start taking offers tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. And hey, look, the health of Kyrie Irving, that's something we're going to have to watch as well.
Absolutely.
If Kyrie Irving can't be effective, if he essentially has to be J.R. Smith in this series and just be a spot-up shooter, that could be a game changer as well. All right, Bud, you got some spin-offs for us.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. You know, one of the more interesting aspects of the Cavs' playoff run is checking in from time to time to see how fans are handling all this prosperity. You may have heard it's been 51 years since we last won anything in this town, and if you haven't heard that number before, you could wait 3 minutes and you'll hear it again. So you'd expect some trepidation to creep in about the Cavs given injuries to Kyrie Irving and the loss of Kevin Love. Not to mention that every time fans turn around, someone is suggesting Cavs coach David Blatt is on the short end of the coaching matchup. Most recently, Isaiah Thomas said as much, and he runs the New York Liberty, Dan, so he must be right. Right? Anyway, Cavs fans feel mostly undeterred by any negativity, even to the point of lumping the Cavs in with Ohio State winning the national title despite being down to its third quarterback. Says Cleveland that I love. Now that the Cavs are marching on, Cleveland fans are truly blessed. I admit I didn't see that one coming. Cleveland fans are truly blessed? I'll say that when I see parade floats and confetti. And until then, it makes me wonder if there's a new definition of truly, not to mention blessed. You know, watching the Cavs win Game 1 in Atlanta Wednesday night had a contagious effect. It's the only way to explain this comment, 42 Warfield, saying the Hawks are, quote, the Washington Generals. Look, Kyrie Irving and Matthew Dellavedova made Jeff Teague look like Meadowlark Lemon. Do you know that reference?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
In his first half drives to the basket, so we might want to hold off on that narrative. I'm pretty sure Atlanta is better than the Washington Generals, and even if they aren't, so long as LeBron James goes 1-on-5 for the last half of every fourth quarter, the games are going to be in doubt. So easy there, Curly Neal. You got that one too?
That one I'm not
Sorry.
Real sure about.
You know, last week I wrote a column saying that maybe the timeout that wasn't in Chicago might be the tipping point in Cleveland sports history. It was an only in Cleveland moment that somehow didn't come back to haunt the town, as so many others have. The Cavs could have lost that game, fallen behind in the series, and maybe we're not sitting here today talking about the Atlanta Hawks as the Washington Generals. It was just a stray thought that I had, not evidence that I've spent much time studying up on sports curses or whether there's really a hex that governs Cleveland sports. Jay Pinkman, a name which could explain this response, says, yes, 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 the headlines gave him goosebumps. Something I wrote, Dan, gave someone a goosebump. That the Cavs are just the kind of team that could break the curse. That they embody the city's resolve in getting back up after being knocked down. I only have one question. Who are you people, and what have you done to the real fans of Cleveland? The ones who are pretty sure this is how it ends, with Kyle Korver banking in a 70-footer at the buzzer in Game 7. A possession made possible when David Blatt was given a technical for knocking over an official, Pat Shurmur style. Well, maybe, just maybe, Cleveland fans have compartmentalized their angst and frustration and negativity, and directed it all at the Indians, who are approaching the 40-game mark I talked about with the worst record in the division. Gainesville Steve wins the Sarcasm Award, which is not an easy thing to do in normal times in Cleveland, by saying, "Come one, come all to Progressive Field." You can read his entire comment or War and Peace, whatever you have time for. But the gist of it is that the Indians are on pace to lose a historic number of games, that Corey Kluber probably won't win more than 6 because he's getting a lack of support and the defense is so bad. He invites everyone to the pre-fire sale where $10 beers are the price to pay for watching a team tank for the next draft. Now that's the kind of negativity I've come to expect. Unfortunately for the Indians, they're going to get the brunt of it for a while. The Cavs are chasing a title. Ohio State, of course, is loading up for another run at a national championship. And the Browns? Well, the Teflon Browns have unveiled new uniforms. And to be fair, what more could we ask of them? Dan?
Hey, I'm right here.
I'm surprised you got the Curly Neal and Meadowlark Lemon references.
Well, yeah,
okay,
of course. The one thing that I think could come out of this, and I didn't get a chance to ask Hoynesy this.
Okay.
Corey Kluber might finally change Paul Hoynes' mind about wins and losses for pitchers. Maybe.
Well, you know what? That's a great point, and you should say that.
Maybe he's finally gonna take the leap and vote for a guy that's like 1-19
well,
for the Cy Young.
Well, as someone who picked Kluber to win consecutive Cy Youngs, I've been very happy to see him at least rebound over the last 2 starts because makes the pick look a little, well, maybe that much less ridiculous.
How about that? All right, that'll do it for Sports Insider. Thanks to Hoynesy, Mary Kay, Chris Fedor. He's Bud Shaw. I'm Dan Labbe. Thanks for watching.